Welcome back. So in the last video we showed you how to define a new function. The example we used was a simple function called square. In this video I'm going to tell you rather more about functions and show you how they work, hopefully. So here's a more advanced function definition and some test code. So I've copied that all over here into this window. This is my new prog.py. First of all, I'm just going to run it so you can see what it does. It prints three numbers, 32, 212 and 451. These are the Fahrenheit temperatures corresponding to a Celsius temperature of 0, freezing point of water, melting point, boiling point of water 100.0, and the temperature at which paper self-ignites, Fahrenheit 451. So let's look at the details again, just to remind you how things work. So we start by defining a function, and every function definition begins with the word def. Then there's a space, then there's the name of the function, then there's parentheses to tell us what the parameters are. In this case it's just one, it's a temperature in degrees C. Then there's a colon, that's critical, and this is followed by the body of the function, that is the actual definition of what it means to convert or to execute the function Fahrenheit. This is the page of the recipe book that is called Fahrenheit. This is what we actually do when we call Fahrenheit. And what we do is create a new variable, degrees F, which is an assignment statement, and it computes this expression, which involves the particular value of degrees C we were given. Hopefully you've learned that thing from school. If not, just accept it. And then we have our return statement to say this is the answer, this is the result of our recipe. It's that degrees F value that we just computed. Then we have the three tests. The first test gives it an integer 0, the second test gives us a floating point 100, and the third test gives it an expression. Now, something we haven't really mentioned, anywhere in Python, pretty much anywhere in Python where you need a value, you can pass in an expression. In order to have we need an argument. The argument value can be an expression, as you can see here. So that gets worked out, passed in here as the value of degrees C. What I'd like to now show you is how this actually behaves in the Python tutor. So I'm going to go to pythontutor.com over here, and I'm going to make that window a little bit bigger. And we're going to visualize our code. And I'm going to paste that function in that I had in there. Now there's something I didn't show you. There's a setting that you should use if you want the Python visualization in here, the tutor visualization, to look the same as in our lecture notes, and that's this setting here, render all objects on the heap. By default it says something different. We don't need to worry about what that means, just set it to that. So there's this program, and I'm going to visualize it. So there we are, ready to go. That red arrow is the start of our program, the first line in the program. Let's see what happens when I go forward one line. I'll zoom in just a little bit. So I go forward and bang, we get a new frame. The frame is the global frame. Now this is kind of subtle. The word global at this stage is new to you, but this is just our dictionary, the program's dictionary, the outer dictionary maybe. And it's called global frame here. We call it the global dictionary in our lecture notes. And as a result of executing that first statement there, we've got a new variable, which is a little bit of an odd thing. It's a variable called Fahrenheit. It refers to a function. So it's a function object. You can think of that as a sort of super assignment statement on steroids. It defines a new thing, an object which is actually a function, and it does it all in one click on that button. Blam, we now have that. So one more forward click, watch carefully what happens. I'm going to call Fahrenheit 0. I'm actually going to print the result of calling Fahrenheit 0. So I go blam, and we're up here. So you can think of this as like that recipe, if you're making a lasagna recipe and it asks for you to make some white sauce, and you turn to the white sauce recipe in your recipe book and you go to that page. You're now in a brand new workspace. We've got a global frame, a new frame here called Fahrenheit. That's just appeared. You can think of this as cleaning your workbench in your kitchen, brand new space, totally separate from lasagna. You're now making the white sauce. Here we are over here with a new variable, degrees C, in a new frame. the Fahrenheit frame or dictionary. And it has the value 0 because that was the argument. So the parameter value, which is now behaving like a local variable, I'll use that term again in a minute, it's now behaving like a local variable, it was initialized to 0. There we are, click forward again, we're about to execute that statement. Watch what happens to this frame when I click forward. Bingo, we get a new variable, degrees F. It's a floating point number, 32.0. I'm about to return the answer from this function, the result of the recipe. One click, and we go into sort of no man's land down here, halfway between, and there's a little extra bit being added to the frame to tell us the return value is indeed that same value that degrees F just computed, 32.0. So when I click forward, we're going to drop out of the function and come back down to here. We drop out, the function frame vanished, gone. Degrees F, gone. So everything we were working with has disappeared. Just like when you finished making the white sauce, you return to the main lasagna recipe, the bit of bench space we were using has just vanished. Magic. We're about to do this again. I'm not going to go through that, just watch quickly what happens. We come up into the function, which with the degrees C being 100, we compute the new value we want, which is 212, and we're about to return that. So there's the return value, pop back out again, and we've printed 212. And then in this last step, we're going to compute Fahrenheit 451 as it's going to be. 232 is the input value, 0.7778. Compute the answer, 451, pop out, print 451, and we're done. So I hope that showed you something about how functions actually work. So let's go back to the lecture notes. I've introduced the term local variables. I just want to draw your attention to the slide. So when we're within the function, we have a new local workspace. My analogy is in the lasagna, in the white sauce menu, you have a completely different workspace, different bit of bench to work with. And the variables in that workspace all disappear when the function returns. And there's a word scope here, which I don't think we need to worry about too much, except that, no, I will try to clarify. Degrees F here, the scope of it is that function. You can't see it from outside. So I often see people in the lab trying to print degrees F after they've called the function and being told it doesn't exist. That's because it only exists while you're executing that function. When do I use functions? Always. Functions are at the heart of programming. The term divide and conquer you'll be familiar with from problem solving. Break a big problem into small pieces. Those small pieces are functions. If they're too big, break them down again. Keep breaking them down until you get little wee functions with no more than about 10 lines so that each of them is simple. We have a limit of 40 lines generally in COSC 121, but we sometimes make it smaller. And all this process of breaking stuff down into functions is really critical, but too hard for now. We'll do that around about week 8, I think. One more thing I have to tell you about functions is docstrings. So at the moment, if having run that program, if I ask for help on Fahrenheit, it's a function I wrote myself. When you call for help on a function, like if you go help on round, it normally tells you something about it. There it is, that's help on the function round. You're probably not too surprised that if I ask for help on Fahrenheit, I don't get a lot of useful stuff out of it. Because, hey, I just wrote it myself, and what's it meant to tell me? It just tells me Fahrenheit degrees C. So the way I deal with that, and also the way I make the program more readable, is I say what it does. And in here I'm going to say something, returns the given temperature in degrees C, converted to, I can have multiple lines here, converted to Fahrenheit. So that thing is called a docstring. For now, just accept it begins with triple quotes, ends with triple quotes, they're double quotes. And now when I run it, it still behaves exactly the same. But if I ask for help on Fahrenheit, I now get told not only how to call it, but what it does. So this is documentation, and it's called a docstring. And you're going to be required to do those for every function you write in this course, pretty much. And that's all I have time for in this video. Thanks for watching. Bye.